Welcome to the Texas News Podcast, where we dive into all things Texas politics and the future of independence in the state of Texas. On today's show, we're going to give you updates on our legal fight with the Texas Republican Party and how the Texas GOP and the judicial system royally screwed over 139,000 petition signers. We're also going to discuss how we can fight back now by electing pro-Texit candidates. And at the end of this episode, we're going to be talking to one of those candidates. So don't go anywhere. All right. Hey, thank you for joining us for the next episode. I guess we call these episodes, right, of the Texas News Podcast. We're going to have a good one, but we're switching things up. Normally, we would do the interviews at the very beginning, and we've got a great one for you today. Ben Mostyn, who's running for the Texas House there in Bexar County. He is a phenomenal candidate, and I cannot wait to get to that interview. Before that, though, we're going to cover some of the news, and we're going to talk about where we are with the legal fight over the TEXIT petition. We're going to help you understand what happens from this. Well, technically, what has happened in the time since we were together last. We're going to help you understand a little bit about what this looks like moving forward and what you can do about it right now. So look, let's just kick this off, because I'm going to dive off into this, not obviously as deep a dive as I have done the past 2 weeks. And if you are finding yourself not understanding some of what I'm talking about today, just going to encourage you to go back and listen to those previous 2 episodes, or go to the TNM website where we're keeping articles up about these on a regular basis. And people may say, well, how come we're not hearing about this every day? Well, you're not hearing about it every day because that's not how the legal system works. And you're going to get, I think, maybe a better understanding of that today. But just a brief recap for you of where we left off. When we had spoken last, the Texas Supreme Court had rejected our mandamus petition, aka trying to get Matt Rinaldi to do his damn job. Right? They rejected it literally within hours of its filing. It's unclear whether they even reviewed it, because they gave no reason whatsoever for the rejection. So the next step was for us to file suit in Travis County in district court, which we did. And if you heard my frustration last week, you're going to understand where that frustration came from, because while we filed the lawsuit and we asked for an emergency hearing for a temporary restraining order, the court refused to actually hear it on an emergency basis, and instead set the hearing for the 16th, which was then subsequently moved to the 18th. Now, that is extremely important to know, those dates, because you see, under the Texas Election Code, all of the contests, if you want to contest a ballot, by statute, have to be done by 50 days before the primary date, which would have been the 15th. But since the 15th was a holiday, it would have made it the 16th. And so when they kicked the can down the road and set it, the court in Travis County, the district court, was essentially sending a message to all of us, whether all of you that signed the petition to the TNM, that it was DOA. They didn't want to deal with it. And what that's called, and if you've been keeping up with any of these election contests and challenges, you probably have seen that date an awful lot. That January the 16th date. The reason being is you've got courts that don't want to deal with these election challenges, right? They don't want to deal with the facts of the case. So what they do is they shove it off to the 16th or after. Now, you may say, well, what's the big deal about the 16th and the statutory ballots? Can't we just go in and fight it? The answer is yes, sort of. But you see, by kicking the can down the road, or kicking the date down the calendar past the time of the ballot challenges, they have effectively made the lawsuit moot. Okay. And so when they moot a suit like that, you don't have a lot of recourse in relation to this. And so you see this pattern among these courts hearing these challenges around the state. And in fact, you've got one right now with the SD 30 residency challenge, right? It's still on the calendar, but it will effectively be rendered moot. Or you have the issue with State Representative Gary Gates and the challenge that he had to the person that was on the ballot where he is, where they kicked the can down the road and ultimately the suit was mooted. Okay. So, the question becomes, well, what does this mean for us? Can we still even get this on the ballot? It doesn't look like it, right? It doesn't look like we're going to be able to get any relief, because at this point, you've got the courts that don't want to deal with this issue. You've got a Supreme Court that was asleep at the wheel that said, you know what? They shot a middle finger to everyone here that signed the petition that wanted that thing on the ballot and refused to even hear the case. And so the second thing is you've got the district court there in Travis County shooting the middle finger to Texas supporters saying, you know what? We don't want to deal with this. We don't want to address the facts in this case. And frankly, that's what this boils down to. So, the question becomes, and the question I get a lot is, well, what's the next play? I mean, are we going to go fight for the rightness of our cause, even though they've effectively stolen this issue from us? They've stolen our ability, even though Matt Rinaldi, the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, breached his statutory duty. Is there recourse? Absolutely, there's recourse. And we're going to talk about it. But before I do that, I just want to be very clear about some things, because I think it's necessary to really dispel a few things. Right now we've talked about Rinaldi's rejection, right? And we have addressed both issues, and in the process of working through the legal steps for this, there's been even more come to light, right? I sit here, and I'm holding this federal court case of Miller v. Nelson. I've mentioned it before, where the plaintiffs literally got an injunction preventing the Secretary of State from enforcing any paper ballot provisions in the Texas election code, leaving only digital as the default. So obviously, the court has contemplated that digital signatures must be good, because by eliminating the paper petition requirements, that only leaves one mechanism, and that would be digital or electronic. So we've got a court here in Texas, in Miller v. Nelson, that obviously established it. Some people have said, well, what about these various provisions about, whether or not the Republican Party of Texas or the state of Texas have to take them? Well, it's become very clear. If you look at the case of Corey v. Thompson, which is a case right here in Texas, it is abundantly clear that it takes statutory interpretation of the code of the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act to say it. And I'm looking this up because I want to read this to you. It literally quotes the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, and it says unequivocally that it requires the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act to be construed and applied consistently with continued expansion of practices for electronic communication. It even talks about, literally in the Texas law, and that was 322.006.2, right? If you guys want to look that up and try to fact check me, right? But it also says in the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act that it is an attempt to standardize among the various states. And in doing so, Corey v. Thompson was very clear about the court's ability to look at the precedents set in other states on this issue. And when they look at other precedents on this issue, you have a case called Anderson v. Bell. Sorry, I had to look that up. And so under section 322.006 sub 3, right, of the Business and Commerce Code, it becomes usable. And the case of Anderson v. Bell is almost identical to our case related to the signatures. So the bottom line here is we did everything right. We followed the law to the letter. We followed precedent to the letter. We followed the case law. Before we went into this petition process, we knew what we were doing. And we knew the law was on our side. And it's something that we still know. Matt Rinaldi, as chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, had a statutory duty to take those petition signatures, to do verification on their registration status only, and to place the question on the ballot. And instead, what he did was he played games with the calendar so that in doing so, he denied you legal recourse, right? We haven't even talked about the fact that he waited until the night of the 27th, or technically the 28th, to notify us. And the fact that they got their information in the Secretary of State, as near as we can tell, because we're still waiting on the open records request from the Secretary of State, they got it in on the 3rd. So it was done intentionally. It was designed to intentionally deprive you of your rights under the Texas Election Code and the Texas Constitution. He violated your rights. He violated the law. He violated the rights. He breached his statutory duty, and he caused harm. Now, does that mean that, he gets away with it? Absolutely not. That doesn't mean he gets away with it all. And look, I haven't even covered his stupid argument about the filing deadline. But if anyone needs a list of cases as long as my arm that show that he's as full of crap as a Christmas goose, then, we've got those. And while it may be probably not the best to talk about pending litigation, I won't get into details, but does it mean that we're out of the game? No. We said that there would be multiple legal actions, and depending on the response of the Republican Party of Texas in the courts, that would dictate our next steps. And that's exactly where we are. And so while the odds of us being able to force these people on a ballot in March have gone virtually to zero because they lied, they deprived us of a right, they broke the law, that doesn't mean the legal fight's over, because here's what the bottom line is. If you look at, so we pulled, on the night of the 15th, we went ahead and pulled the lawsuit because it was going to be mooted anyway the next day, but we did so in a legal terminology, what's called without prejudice, which opened us up to left the options open for our next steps. And so, look, here's where we're at and where this is going to head. I stated at the very beginning that we would fight for every single one of you, and that is exactly what we're going to do. The legal fight is not over because we intend to sue again, and maybe not just one suit, but multiple suits, because we believe that there are multiple causes of action. It is abundantly clear to us that this was an orchestrated attempt to deprive each and every one of you of your rights. It was intentional disenfranchisement. It was not some accidental misinterpretation of the law, because let's be honest, as someone who has a ministerial duty under the Texas Election Code, it's his job to know the law. Why do we have to go in and explain it to him? But he knew exactly what he was doing, and he's not alone. People, and this is just a great example. If you go listen to what he said in that one interview that he gave on the Chris Salcedo show, he conceded the date, the filing date issue. He conceded essentially that we were right and he was wrong. But he literally talks about how the people that the TEXIT question would bring into the Republican primary are the wrong ones. He clearly established a political motive for his failure and his breach to do his duty under the law. And that, friends, that ain't legal. And so he wrongfully disenfranchised our people. As a matter of fact, in the case of Anderson v. Celebrezzi from 1983, it's very clear what that does, because it says the rejection in that case, again, another petition case, the rejection of the petition was arbitrary and applied in a discriminatory manner. Some people may say, well, what was discriminatory about it? Go back and look at the case that I talked about that was filed in the state Supreme Court, right? That was Walker essentially trying to get Justice Devine knocked off the ballot. And they highlighted Rinaldi's practices and his sloppy treatment of petition signatures in that instance. And I'm not saying that Devine should have been knocked off the ballot. I got no dog in that hunt. But what I do have is clear proof that Rinaldi, as chairman of the RPT, is picking and choosing based off of political motivations. He slopped through the problems with Devine's petition. I really don't have anything to, I did what I had to do, and that was all I did. But with us, completely different story. And then he cited in that interview political motivations for doing that. So you've got a chairman who gamed the calendar, who likely violated the law when he failed to give us proper notice, who did so intentionally to deprive you of your ability to have to even have any legal recourse on it, because technically speaking, they could argue that this suit was mooted on the 3rd of December when they kicked it over to the Secretary of State. In fact, Secretary of State's guidance is very clear. All of that stuff should be turned in by the state party and the county parties by December the 5th. It was intentional to delay you any ability for legal recourse to force it on the ballot, but that's not the end of it. You see, because you suffered harm. So we're going to fight for you. We're going to continue to fight this as long as you want us to fight this. TEXIT supporters, signers of the petition, we're going to fight it as long as you do, because in the end, two things need to happen. Number one is we need to be vindicated in the position that the truth needs to prevail. Rinaldi cannot get by with lying, breaking Texas election code, and denying you your rights that you expected under the Texas election code and the Constitution. You expected them to follow the law. That's where the expectation is. I don't want to hear any crap from them about election integrity. I don't. In fact, you literally have Rinaldi lying right now, going around saying, we're just trying to open the door for electronic signatures on voter registration. That is a lie straight from the pit of hell, because he knows that a recent court case upheld Texas' brand spanking new law, essentially establishing that voter registration was an exception to UETA, and therefore must have, by law, they went in and had to change the law to specify that they had to be original signatures, wet signatures, right? Now, that's a whole other case. This is not a legal podcast, but it feels like it's turning into one. But he knows good and well that that's the case, and he's trying to conflate the issues, to confuse the issue, to essentially make people think that we did the wrong thing, and that even though he did the wrong thing, he did it for the right reasons. And that, again, is a lie. Now, those of you out there that are Matt Rinaldi fans, look, I'm sorry for you. I really am. Because this is just proof positive that even your heroes can be corrupted. I don't know what his motivation is. It seems political, right? But what is the underlying push for that? So, as I said, it is abundantly clear that as long as you want us to, number one, we're going to go fight to vindicate our position, to show that he lied, to show that he denied you your constitutional rights. So expect that. But here's the other thing, too. As an organization that went out and as people out there that are listening, that are part of this organization, that donated, that volunteered, that did all of those things, that spent money on booths and tables and did all those things, there is a financial issue here. Because of what he did, he created economic harm. Because let's be honest, those petition signatures, outside of some extraordinary relief by the courts, they are good for this election cycle and this election cycle only. And so his actions created financial harm. And that is liability. So we're going to go fight for your rights. We're going to go fight for vindication, and we're going to go fight to essentially compensate the organization and you. Because if we decide to go this route again, I think there would be nothing wrong with making Matt Rinaldi and in his capacity as chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, pay for the actions. And maybe next time they will think a little bit harder when they elect a chairman. Maybe they will find someone who won't put their thumb on the scales, which has been interesting because this is something that he's been telling people. He told people when we were getting ready to deliver the petition, I'm not going to put my thumb on the scales. It is a lie. Maybe you'll choose better next time. So it is important to understand that we are bringing in additional attorneys to fight this issue moving forward. None of this moves fast. We attempted to move it fast. We attempted to go straight to the Supreme Court for a mandamus where we were supposed to go. We filed in district court to have an emergency hearing for a temporary restraining order. They punted past the date of mootness. So now we're taking time. Now, it's not going to be like the Facebook suit where the court's going to play out slowly. We're taking a beat. We took this week to vet out additional attorneys to proceed with this, because this is going to be a big deal. Look, by the time this is all over with, this is going to be a huge deal, and we're going to find out but at the end of this, one way or the other, who was right. But I will tell you, it is very clear. The law is clear. The case law is clear. The precedents are clear. We did the right thing. He wrongfully disenfranchised you by breaching his statutory duty. And so as far as additional details, people will ask about what attorneys, what's the nature of the suit. I cannot share any more than what I've shared with you today. We will continue to keep you updated as things progress, but anything else we get into is going to deal with strategy. And you know what? I'm not giving them a heads up. I don't owe it to them. I don't owe it to them in the least. I do not, and I know they listen. They're voyeurs. I know they listen or watch these podcasts and everything that we do. And frankly, I just don't, I'm not going to give them any heads up. Let them guess from whence the next blow comes. But we are not, by any stretch of the imagination, done. Okay. But again, it's important for everyone to remember that the petition and the vote were part of a multi-pronged strategy. And so if you heard what I talked about last time, we had a previous podcast discussion about this related to the Texas First campaign, right? The Take Texas Back campaign and the Texas First pledge. Later on in this episode, you're going to get to hear from one of those candidates. You've already heard from some. We've done previous interviews with Kyle Biederman, right? And we're scheduling more of them on in a rapid fashion. We're getting ready to launch something that I think is going to be pretty cool, where you're going to get to hear from all of them, right? Or as many as will participate. But that list is growing every single solitary day. Go over to TakeTexasBack.com right now and go take a look and look at that list of candidates. There is a slate of candidates over there that love and will adhere to the Constitution, and particularly in the legislative level, that will fight for your right to have a vote on this issue. And I would suggest, if you're angry and you're mad at what Matt Rinaldi did and the Republican Party of Texas, then you've got an opportunity to channel it. Because remember, the vote on the March primary was just a vote. But the ultimate goal here is the vote that we get that comes as a result of passage of the Texas Independence Referendum Act. And that vote is the one that's for all the marbles, boys and girls. That is the big daddy. And you get that vote by pushing these candidates across the finish line, by, returning guys like Kyle Biederman back to the Texas House, or Andy Hopper, or, either one of the candidates that are running against Dade Phelan, or any of those folks that are listed on the Texas First Pledge signing section of TakeTexasBack.com. That's how you get it done. So you get them across the finish line. So channel your anger into doing everything you can to support the effort to support these candidates. Go donate to the TNM PAC. Go make contributions right now. $5, $10, $20, whatever it is. Go find your candidate and go volunteer. Go sign up the block walker, phone banker, do anything. But these guys need our help. The political establishment is taking a wad of money to return the incumbents to their positions in the Texas legislature that absolutely hate your belief in the right of self-government. They despise Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, despise it with a purple passion. And so it is important, more important than ever, for you to support candidates who support your right to vote on independence. Because that's what it takes. And look, if you've got some Pollyanna pie in the sky idea that, somehow that, if we just, kind of just go along and it'll get done, let this serve as a warning to you. Let what Rinaldi did with this petition serve as a warning to you that if you don't kick it up in high gear, they will steal it from you. You better get vested in this thing like there is no tomorrow. You better double down on every single thing like the very existence of Texas depended on it, because it does. By the time this is all over with, we have the opportunity to send in a cadre of people to the Texas legislature and other offices that become an unstoppable juggernaut to get this issue on a ballot. And what we know is what we've always known. What the political establishment knows, why they fight so hard against us, why, those little tin pot tiny dictators like Mini Matt want to keep it off the ballot, because if it goes on the ballot, it wins. So you got to get those people pushed across. But for those of you that are listening, and this excludes anyone who is not a Republican, I promise I'm not leaving you out, but the people that should be the angriest about this issue are people that are Republican voters, because Matt Rinaldi says you're the wrong ones, right? But it's abundantly clear, and my message is to those of you in the Republican Party right now. If your SREC member voted against putting this on the ballot propositions back at the beginning of December, you have to replace them. You only get to replace them if you participate in the conventions. That means the precinct conventions after the primaries. That means your county and SD conventions after that. And that means state convention, right? We went in with almost no intention, right? Some plan last go around with a block of 1,000 identified TNM delegates. Imagine what happens if all of a sudden that number is 3,000 next time or 4,000. You know what that means? That means you run the table. That means you get to take, these whiners and complainers like the Rolando Garcias of the world and these executive committee members and send them to the House. That means that you have an opportunity to exact your vengeance upon Matt Rinaldi as chairman of the GOP and replace him with someone who will know and obey the law, who will not put their thumb on the scales for political motivation and use shady justification. That's what gives you the ability to do it. So my message again, just to reiterate, is for Republican voters listening to this podcast. You have an opportunity. We've got to get our guys across the finish line in March, but that's not where the battle stops. Because if you want to take back your party, because let's be honest, I saw the campaign finance reports that were filed by the party. Let's just say it ain't been great. And we've seen so much infighting and dysfunction in the GOP, and that has spilled over into denying you your right of self-government. If you want to take your party back and make it a true Texas first party, then that is your opportunity to do so. So that's where you go moving forward. So, look, I encourage you to go to the TNM website, go to tnm.me/volunteer and become a volunteer. That's the way that we're going to know that we can count on you. And we'll be sending out a survey to all the people that are in the TNM that are Republican voters, gauging what their interest is in taking their party back. And who knows what happens after that, right? Who knows what becomes of that? I know if we rolled in there with 1,000+ delegates last time, God only knows how many we can run in there now and take it over. I mean, they keep this up. They keep shooting the middle finger at TEXIT supporters. Who knows? Maybe one of you will be the chairman, and maybe there'll be enough delegates there to just take over the whole SREC. Who knows? Who knows what happens? But what happens in that regard is not just up to me. I'm one voice among many. It's up to you. It's up to you to say, you know what, man, I hate that Rinaldi did this, and man, the system sucks, so I'm going to curl up in a fetal position and suck my thumb. I mean, that's one option, right? But the other option is you could hoist up the come and take it flag and say, you know what, we're not giving up. We're not going to take this crap anymore. You see, momentum is on our side. The fact that we are inundated with media requests every single day, that we're getting all of this interest for people wanting to know what our next tells you the momentum is on our side. And it's not hard to see. When you look at what's happening down there on the border right now, Greg Abbott, and we didn't really talk about this on here, but when you see what Greg Abbott did, effectively taking over that city park in Eagle Pass, everybody just kind of shrugged. His critics and detractors said, oh, it's another ploy, right? But what was interesting was what the opposition said. And what the opposition said was that suddenly Abbott is making TEXIT happen. Maybe what we need to do is go drop that petition off at Greg Abbott and say, hey, look, given the fact that you're at loggerheads with the federal government and given the fact that they're suing you in court to keep you away from doing your constitutional duty, maybe your constitutional duty should be to call a special session and pass the Texas Independence Referendum Act and let the people of Texas vote on this issue. Let the people of Texas signal that they are sick and tired of kowtowing to a federal government who wants to erase our border with Mexico. Maybe that's what we need to do. I don't know. I'd love to hear your comments. If you think that is something we should do with the petition, then definitely reach out and let us know. And look, I think it's only fitting. I mean, we just had this phenomenal response. Chip Roy has been circling the TEXIT issue yet again, right? We have talked about on the TNM news site and other places. We've talked about Chip Roy and some of the remarks that he's made, sort of dancing around the TEXIT issue, essentially making the case without saying it. But interestingly enough, he released earlier in the month an open letter. And this is literally what I'm just going to take this excerpt because I'm not going to dwell on this, right? I'll let you go to TNM News and read the whole article. But this is a quote in his open letter. He says, "My fellow Texans rightly ask whether Texas and similarly minded Americans should remain part of a federal government forsaking their well-being, safety, and security in violation of the compact under which we entered the Union. This is not a passing concern or political hyperbole, but a constitutional crisis." This was literally the first direct acknowledgement from Chip Roy about TEXIT and the TEXIT sentiment, right? And what we're doing down here. Because he says we rightly ask whether Texas and similarly minded Americans should remain a part of the federal government. He's talking about you. He's talking about us. We're the ones that are doing the asking. Let's be clear about that. Ain't nobody else doing the asking but us. We make the case for Texas independence every single solitary day and going to continue to do so. And not only that, we advocate for those of you out there that may not be sold on this issue to have at least a public debate and a vote on the issue. Because any debate without a vote on the end of it is just an academic exercise, right? So it's us. It's you. We're the ones making this happen. And so the fact that we've got, yet again, a sitting congressman acknowledging that what we're doing is the right conversation to be having is pretty stunning. And no matter what your opinion is on Chip Roy, the bottom line is you take the personality out of the issue, and you have got, yet again, a sitting congressman saying that you are on the right path. Now, he's not saying he's for TEXIT, but he's saying that we are asking the right question. And I think that is an important move in the right direction. So head over to TNM News. That's news.tnm.me. You can read the entire article. You can find the text of his open letter. It is pretty stunning. And I think it really speaks to the fact that we're in the right. We've talked about this in every bit of the news points. We've been right. We're right about the law where the petition was concerned. We're right about the sentiment of the people of Texas because we know if it goes on a ballot, it wins. And we've been right, I think, from the standpoint morally, when you have Chip Roy and other people, so at that federal level, acknowledging that, look, this is a legitimate conversation that needs to be had. It's already happening. Regardless of what the political establishment says, this is going to continue. I mentioned a moment ago the media requests that we're getting in to a T. That's what they're all saying. They seem to understand that there is momentum moving this direction, that Texans will at some point get a vote on this issue. They understand those internal pressures that are fracturing that institution known as the federal government. They understand that something is going to happen, and they understand that we are a very important piece of what that future is going to look like. All right, look, let's get past this and let's talk about it. I mean, we talked about Chip Roy, we talked about ineffective GOP leadership. We talked about the petition campaign and all the lawsuit stuff. And we talked about the Texas First Pledge and the Take Texas Back effort. Well, look, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest. I want to welcome a candidate for Texas House 117 and Texas First Pledge signer, Ben Mostyn. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you, Daniel?
I'm fantastic. Hey, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. So why don't you start by giving everyone just a little bit about your background and your experience?
So I've lived all over, but I grew up in Texas. I was homeschooled most of my life, in fact, until the 10th grade. And then I went to public school and the first in the nation to go to high school and the college simultaneously. Studied engineering, was the youngest employee of the MCI Corporation, been in sales and telemarketing and management for majority of my life. But then I went into the Army and I bounced all over the country and around the world. So I after the Army, I was a true civilian for a little while. I was in the modeling and movie industry in New York City. You'll hear that accent from time to time. And then I went back to defense. I taught for the Department of Defense for many years. I was deployed as a subject matter expert and advisor. And I did 5 deployments and I came back to the States and eventually was able to get back to Texas. I couldn't wait to get back to Texas. I saw the country falling apart, unfortunately, from afar as you defended as we defended the United States and what we stand for. And so when I got back to America, I couldn't wait to get back to Texas and finally found my way back here and got to Texas and said, wait a minute, what is going on here? And that's what drove me to get involved in Texas politics.
Well, let's talk about the race for a bit. You're running, as I mentioned, you're running for Texas House there in District 117. Kind of bridge that gap for us. I mean, you obviously, you said you got to Texas and you looked around and you said, hey, wait a minute, we've got issues here that need to be addressed. How did you get from there to saying, look, I've got to throw my name in the ring because I think our people need better representation?
Well, it didn't even start that way. What it was is when the 2022 election took place and the red wave that was supposed to happen that didn't happen, I started going around and talking to the movers and shakers, not only here in San Antonio, Bexar County, but also in the surrounding counties, saying, we are losing. This is a blue city. They're trying to turn this state blue. And, what do you need? How can I help? Put me in, coach. And they said, we need you to run for office. Your background and your energy, we need you to run for office. And so, research was done on, what the best fit for me would be and something that is winnable. And we saw Texas House, District 117 and said, you know what, we can flip that seat. And to put that in perspective, there are 10 seats in San Antonio. 7 of them are held by Democrats. And if I can just round out with one of the causes that really drove me, aside from the red wave or lack thereof that I mentioned, it's America has lost its identity. And we need to get back to the roots and back to the basics of a constitutional republic that is governed by democracy, in which there is self-governance, in which we are governing ourselves. And so we need an adult in the room. We need a problem solver in the room and not a politician. And that's what my focus is to bring to the state of Texas.
That's fantastic. And look, I think you've rightly identified that part of the problem that we've got right now, particularly with pushing back against the federal government, whether it's the border, whether it's federal debt, any of those issues that really drive support on the Texas issue. The weak point in our chain, in our defense, is really the Texas House. From
Yes,
your perspective, I mean, and that's an understatement, right? I understand
that's
that's a
where
bit
it
of
all
a
falls
that's a
apart.
bit of a soft pedal, right? But from your perspective, I mean, obviously you talked about doing this evaluation. What is your kind of view on where the Texas House as a body sits right now? Where do you think those problems are coming from?
Dysfunctional. Also, answering to the special interest groups and not answering to we the people. Being more concerned about just the fraternity and keeping that going, the relationship and the money coming in, and not problem solving. What really frustrates me, and this is not only in Texas but also at a congressional level, is that when you talk to a legislator, you say, why aren't you taking care of the border? Why don't we have school choice? Why aren't we revamping our education system? Why are our taxes so high and we are continuously paying a higher and higher rent to the government? And then have the audacity, the government, to allow us to sit in traffic for hours and hours every day because we can't seem to get a road completed, to get text messages that our grid is short on electricity. The list goes on. And I am tired of those excuses on why things are not getting accomplished. And where the accountability lies, often it's in those bureaucracies, or it is in the House and the Senate, to ensure that we are motivating the bureaucracies, ensure that we are giving the governor the tools that he needs to make us successful so that we have a better life here in Texas.
Right. That's great. I mean, look, it would be ideal if we had these politicians in Austin, these alleged representatives.
We don't need
Actually,
politicians.
well, I mean, we need to purge the politicians, but
That's
we
right.
we need these people that purport to represent us to put Texas first. I mean, that's how you lead, is you lead by example, and the people of Texas have experienced this massive disconnect between what we talk about a lot, which is the will of the people and the political establishment. There is a political establishment that seems to want to perpetuate itself, and it does so in one of two ways, right? It will ignore the will of its constituents, but then it goes out and does just enough not to get fired, right?
Yes.
They will do things that look good on campaign mailers, or they'll just flat out lie.
That's right. We constantly have a band aid on a brain tumor. And what we need is we need to get in there and do surgery. We need to remove the problem. Whether it's the border, education, taxes, the list goes on. We need to get in there and stop. The Senate puts out some very good legislation, gets to the House, and it either dies or is diluted to a point that is no longer effective. And so we need problem solvers that get in there and address the root of the problem. And by the way, as a legislator, Texas, America as a whole, it's not about writing laws for everything. That's not how our country was built. It is about self-governance. You doing the right thing, govern yourself, govern your household, and do your part. Like Kennedy said, what can I do for my country, not what can my country do for me. And we need to have that spirit back in Texas, that spirit of independence and determination at an individual level. And the legislators or the politicians, hopefully problem solvers, not politicians, right, that we send to office, we need them to have the motivation and conviction to solve problems.
Well, you know what they say, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and when you're a politician, everything looks like it needs a law. So, that's just how those guys work. Well, look, let's talk about this, because we're kind of on the track of talking about, putting Texas and Texans first. What motivated you to sign the Texas First Pledge?
Well, first of all, there is an extreme amount of frustration throughout Texas, and I swore an oath to my country, and I want to keep this country together because divided we cannot stand. It benefits us in many ways. However, if the federal government is not doing its job, if they are continuously, they're not fixing the border, they're not allowing the state to do what is necessary, well, then Texas has the right to move back to our origins as the only republic in these United States. And I don't think we will come to that, and I surely hope we don't come to that. However, that is an option that is on the table and will always be on the table between the United States and Texas.
Yeah, and this has been our case with anyone, whether they're in office or seeking office, which is, look, we're not here yet to debate the pros and cons of staying or leaving, right? That is a debate unto itself. But where we should be is at a point where elected representatives are acknowledging their respect for Article 1, Section 2, and letting the people of Texas have the conversation and have a vote on the issue. Because that's when those pros and cons will get fleshed out. I mean, people will have a vigorous debate about the relationship between the federal government and Texas. But, just letting the people vote is not a bad thing, is it?
No, it's not. And I think that the conversation that we're talking about, getting that discussion going, and really starting to push it, I hope that it wakes up the federal government. Honestly, would you want to lose Texas? We are the 8th largest economy in the world. We bring in $2.4 trillion per year to these United States. Okay, so is that something that you would you want to lose from your portfolio? Speaking in business terms, this is a strong state, and we bring so much to the United States of America, and there should be respect not only for our position but what we bring to the table.
Right. Well, Ben, let's talk about sort of your issues. I mean, you're there in San Antonio. You're running in a House district that's there in Bexar County. What are some of the other issues that you're focusing on in your campaign right now?
First and foremost is the border. We need to secure the border. I have full support for Governor Abbott and any measures that he takes to secure the border. Concertina wire, buoys, blocking, taking over a park. I don't care what you have to do. We have to secure our border. It is unfair to the people that live at the border. It is unfair to our infrastructure, our hospitals, our schools, our police. We have to secure the border. There is a hemorrhage at the border, and in order to fix the hemorrhage, or in order to fix our immigration crisis, and the illegal aliens that are coming in, to address that situation, we have to stop the hemorrhaging. If we do not stop the hemorrhaging, we cannot address the issues of not only the illegals that we know that are here, but those that have gotten away. The drugs, the fentanyl, all the stuff that continuously floods into our country is absolutely unacceptable. To our south, I-35, at the border. Oh, gosh, I just lost the name. The main port of entry there to the south starts with an N. I lost it now. Anyways, there's almost $1 trillion of commerce that comes in, through our border, just in one border entry point. And we need to leverage that with Mexico. Next is our education system. We need to put school choice. That choice should be for parents. I mean, how more American can it be than to send your kids to the school that you want them to go to with your tax dollars? And so many of the schools are failing in Texas. And this is absolutely unacceptable. And this is why we need to revamp the education system from top to bottom. But we need to ensure that parents have that opportunity. It's not going to solve everything, but we need to pass school choice. And then our taxes, it's getting too expensive for everyone to live in a house, especially if you're on a fixed income. Okay. And so we need to address the debt at the municipal and the county levels. Like I said, a higher level of accountability on our roads and highways and how long they take to be built. We need more power plants because we're going to be the most populated state in the union no later than 2030, if not sooner. And the amount of electricity that's necessary, we cannot sustain that. And so we need to drill, frack. We need to use the natural gas that God has given us, and we also need to round it out with crime. We have got to back the blue and support law. The liberal DAs that are not enforcing the law, they've got to go. And we need to ensure that there is law and order. In San Antonio last year, they tried to pass a proposal that would lower the bar on crime. That is not for Texas. If you want that, go back to California or Portland or wherever you came from. That is not for Texas. And so that's a snapshot of some of the things that I'm working on and what I'm standing for.
Well, fantastic. Well, Ben, man, I know you're busy out there campaigning, so we'll wrap it up with this question. Help people understand what can they do right now to best help you win your race.
Donate to the campaign. It takes a tremendous amount of money to win a campaign, and especially to defeat the Democrats who, they bring in a lot of money. So to defeat the Democrats, we have to raise money. I also need volunteers. We need people block walking, phone banking, mailers, getting that information out, letting people know my district 117 has really been unrepresented for over a decade. Okay, someone that doesn't show up and vote, someone that sides with liberal policies, they position themselves as a conservative, but you look at their voting record, that is a rubber stamp for liberal ideals, and that is not Texas values. That is not what this state or this republic, this is not how we began and how we became the 8th largest economy in the world. And so I need that support, financial support, and the manpower to help me win this race.
Well, fantastic, Ben. If people want to find out more, where can they reach you?
They can go to mostynfortexas.com. That's MOSTYN. And if you can't remember how to spell that, most objective solution to your needs. MOSTYN for Texas.com. Go there, donate, and become part of the movement so that we can fix our state and fix this district.
Well, Ben, I really appreciate it, and on behalf of the TNM, let me just thank you for signing the Texas First Pledge, and I'm excited about your race. I am extremely excited about your race, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the Texas legislature.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to speaking again.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Well, folks, what a wonderful opportunity to visit with Ben. And, just like any of the candidates that are out there that are Texas First Pledge signers, they need your help. To find a full list of Texas First Pledge signers, head over to taketexasback.com. Again, that's taketexasback.com. You got to find those folks. And look, if your candidate is not one of the ones listed, they can go over there and sign the pledge right now. And that even goes for actual sitting representatives or electeds that are not up for election in this cycle. So be sure to direct your if you don't see your favorite candidate's name over there, you better get them over there and get them to sign it, because I'm going to tell you, the TNM PAC and TNM supporters are not going to be supporting any wishy-washy, maybe I'll think about none of that crap. Don't even bother. Right, the pledge signers are the ones who get our support, and if they don't sign it, then they can go pound sand. I mean, some people may say, well, that's harsh. How are you going to work with people like that? Just like that, because we're tired of accepting less than what we deserve as Texans. And I think you should be as well. Okay. Well, that has been this has been a good one. I've enjoyed my conversation with Ben, but we got to bring this thing back to the house. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Texas News Podcast. A reminder, no matter where you find this podcast, whether it's the video version or the audio version, be sure to like and share, leave reviews, leave comments. All of that interaction and engagement helps us get in the eyes and ears of more people, and we need that. We're getting coverage by mainstream media. I'm not going to lie. It's been nice and super helpful to have lots of articles in Newsweek over the last several weeks, or, even, being on KTRH morning radio in Houston for the past 2 days. But really and truly, where real growth happens that leads us to success and victory is when you are the one sharing with those people that you know and love to help get the word out. That's what helps more than anything else. So be sure to do those. Be sure to like and subscribe, do all those things. And additionally, if you are not a member of the Texas Nationalist Movement, I'm going to invite you to become one today. Head over to member.tnm.me or tnm.me/join and become a member today. You get all kind of cool perks. Not going to go over it here, but go check it out. And so, my friends, that is a wrap. I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you with every single time we're together. They are the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her?